From Get Some Podcast Studio, I'm Paul Johnson. One story every week. Stories that go where they want, we just follow. If you're here for great stories that connect, you're in the right place. Okay, let's get into it. A quick note on voice. I'm going to tell this in third person. It lets me be brutally honest about myself, especially where I blew it, and crystal clear about what changed in 2025. In the dark, every light lies to you. Headlamps bounce, stars masquerade as markers, and the mountain doesn't care. In 2024, Paul flew to his first airplane ultramarathon. Minimalist kit, 2 drop bags, 3 pairs of shoes. Trekking poles almost confiscated at TSA. A rental RV that looked more 2012 than 2022. A town called Coleman, a start line at Castle Mountain Resort. And a promise he made to himself. Don't do anything dumb in the dark. Check-in was classic ultra theater, a waiver no one reads but everyone signs, a bright orange jersey, and a Garmin InReach handed over like a talisman. Turn it on at the start, you'll be a dot on a map. People will know you're okay. Sure, if only the dots obeyed. For context, the Divide 200 is a 200-mile, point-to-point foot race across the southern Canadian Rockies. Runners have 5 days to finish, moving checkpoint to checkpoint with minimal outside support. It's remote, high altitude, and notorious for weather and navigation. Instead of a medal as a prize, runners retrieve a small coin from a box on the high Kootenay Pass, the continental divide between Alberta and British Columbia, and carry it all the way to the finish line. The course, a love letter to the southern Canadian Rockies, and a little bit of hate mail. La Culotte Ridge, beauty with consequences. Table Mountain, rock ledges sprinkled with marbles. You could finish here. You could also fall here. Race morning, calm, cold, clean, all in Nike Zagama 2s, Petula Gators. He knew the early ridges would bite. He knew his old demon runner's lean might wake up. He also knew he was healthy, ready. He was wrong about exactly one thing. Night. Leaving the road at South Castle, he and Anna Robbins climb into the sky, peak after peak, reflective tags blinking like breadcrumbs. It's hard, technical, real. They top out. They traverse, they descend. And then, somewhere near 64 kilometers, one colossal mistake. Paul aims for a marker he's already visited. His GPX says, on course, but he never checks direction. In the dark, on course can still mean going backward. They climb everything again, in reverse. Markers now on the left instead of the right. Arrows that don't make sense. Stars pretending to be tape. Anna's InReach pings. You okay? Nobody answers. They don't stop. They believe the wrong truth harder. Dawn. a blue object on the road below. Not salvation. The water jugs at the bottom of Whistler Mountain. They've looped the mountains and returned to the start of the climb. Cutoff gone, race over. Humiliation is a quiet animal. It sits in your throat and won't swallow. Paul's 2024 divide ends with a search and rescue ride to reality. He doesn't go home. He pivots, posts on Facebook, available to pace, and then spends a biblical night in cold rain and Alberta clay, getting Scott Jenkins from checkpoint 10 to checkpoint 12, giving away his waistlight, sharing caffeine, wrapping him in torn space blankets on ground that refused warmth, pushing over 4 climbs and back to Kootenay Pass for the coin. At checkpoint 12, Scott weeps. Marina and Andrea surge. Paul learns what it means to carry someone else's race after losing your own. He writes it all down. Toe sock upgrades, charging discipline, backup lights for backup lights, sleep in minutes, not hours. Trust the map, but interrogate direction. Coach the lean early, eat hot food when you can, and never, ever pretend the mountain will meet you halfway. And he carries one more thing from 2024, not shame, fuel. So here's the 2025 thesis. No sugarcoat. This is revenge and redemption, but not the movie version. No swelling strings, just better batteries, cleaner systems, tighter crew calls, and the humility to stop and reorient when the data and the gut disagree. Same ridge, same weather that makes its own decisions. Same coin waiting in a box on the Continental Divide. But a different Paul. In 2024, the mountain taught the lesson. In 2025, Paul shows the work. We start the story at the point most people hide. The wrong turn that costs a race, and how you design a comeback that doesn't depend on luck. Buckle up. This time we're not asking the finish line for permission. We're taking it. Act 1, getting to the start line. To see how that plan plays out, we rewind to race week. They left Detroit on a Tuesday, Paul and Christopher, father and son. The kind of early September day that still feels like summer, but smells faintly of autumn. Their flight north touches down in Calgary, Alberta. Rebecca Walker is at the airport, smiling, waving, the third member of this little expedition. Instead of a rental counter, they call an Uber, out to meet Annie, who hands them the keys to a 2025 Ford Bronco listed on Turo. Bright, clean, rugged. The Bronco will be their mobile headquarters, their lifeline between checkpoints of a race most people have never heard of. By nightfall, they're winding up a mountain road to Castle Mountain Ski Resort, hostile like a winter postcard, stripped bare for summer. Individual rooms off a single hall. Rebecca gets one, Paul and Christopher another. Bunk beds, no frills. Paul sleeps hard and deep, the way you do before a big effort, when anticipation and exhaustion collide. Wednesday morning, they drive to Coleman, Alberta, a coal town carved into the mountains. Lunch at the Rum Runner, dark wood booths, miners' memorabilia. Later, errands, co-op bags, gear piles, all the small purchases that make up the invisible side of an ultramarathon. By afternoon, Paul's on the hostel floor, drop bags spread around him like a war map, Ziplocs, labels, calculations. Thursday morning, same ritual, but now it's finished, zipped, sealed. Lunch at Sue Sushi in Pincher Creek, stop at the co-op. Canadian activists collecting signatures to affirm Alberta's place in Canada. A small civic moment against the backdrop of his private, physical quest. That afternoon, racer check-in, the waiver, the bib, the Garmin InReach handed over like a talisman. A quick photo, drop bags lined up with other racers' bags, different colors and brands, similar hopes. Stuart Chudder's bins covered with a handwritten motto, "Everything is beautiful, and there is no pain." Paul likes that. Absurd and true. Thursday night, pre-race meeting and welcome dinner. Matt Shepard's course presentation, sharp and detailed. Maps, elevations, warnings. Then the announcement, a course change. Segments around checkpoint 6 and checkpoint 10 rerouted. Everyone told to download the new GPX. All does, of course. Ultramarathon runners know the need to be methodical. Race morning, 5 a.m. Paul wakes up in the hostel. Pre-dawn muted and a little unreal. He pads over to the tiny coffee bar, Keurig pods, stacked paper cups, logs onto his laptop. The glow of the screen reflected in the window. Around him, other runners surfacing, footsteps on the stairs, zippers, the low murmur of strangers sharing the same nerves. He strikes up a conversation with Eric Colum, father of Emmanuel Salambo de Gara, Emma, from Montreal. Small talk, but also not. Back in the room, Paul suits up, layers, pockets, gels, breakfast, Oldberry Blast Pro Bar meal. Then he and Christopher take the short walk to the start line. Sky, early morning alpine blue, cool air even as the sun comes up. All in short sleeves, feels good. At the start line, there's a funny choreography. Runners drifting toward it, but not too close. Everyone wants a place near the front. No one wants to look like they want it. Mountains looming, quiet. The day begins. Okay, Act 2. Step forward. The start line. Paul stands a step back from the tape like everyone else, short sleeves, calm air. The whole day waiting. Shoes, Hoka Tecton X3s. Solomon running vest, empty, no water. Less than 8 kilometers to the first checkpoint. Race directors moved checkpoint 1 up, away from the bad road. The plan is simple. Run light, refill later. 3 Welshmen at the start, Christopher Allen, Nicholas Lyons, Daniel Morgan. Laughter, camaraderie, temperature low 50s. Exactly 8 o'clock a.m., Friday, September 12th. 51 runners step off. Ryan Gallant, the race director, on an e-bike. Kirsty Dolson, race director, near him. High fives at the bridge. All tucks in behind Stuart Chutter, the veteran. Stuart's advice: make sure you have lots of food. Paul tucks that away like a prayer. They run out from Castle Mountain Resort onto West Castle Road, across the West Castle River, down onto Range Road 40A and Highway 774. West Castle Valley opens, part postcard, part proving ground, pine and spruce forests clinging to the slopes. Continental Divide not far off, peaks rising like sentinels. Except for a few steep rises, Paul runs the whole way to Checkpoint 1, arrives 8:55 a.m. River crossing, Matt Shepard waiting, sole volunteer. 4 flasks of water, potato chips, beef jerky, fruit, Rice Krispie treats. Charging cords, gone forever. Fell out of the vest. By 9 o'clock a.m., he's off again, chasing the Welshman up the Great Divide Trail toward La Culotte Ridge. Ridge like a saw blade, alpine meadows turning rocky, snowfields lingering into August. Sun-kissed peak ahead, beyond the tree line at kilometer 16. One false summit after another. Dark clouds to the west, breeze pushing them away. Others being pelted with hail. Loose scree on the descent. Hoka's built-in gators keeping gravel out. Mount Matkin to the north, Font Mountain to the south. Left onto Font Creek Trail at kilometer 31. Thunder again. Small creeks, muddy spots. Bridge over Castle River. Checkpoint 2 at kilometer 38. Light rain still falling. Drew Gibson getting foot care. Paul takes noodles mixed with mashed potatoes, hot chocolate. Too early to know it yet, but he, Drew, and Christopher Allen will all finish within 30 minutes of each other. 5:35 p.m., all leaving Checkpoint 2, north on South Castle Road, 33 kilometers ahead, Loaf Mountain east, Sage Mountain west, Castle River Valley, glacial meltwater, lodgepole, pine, spruce, wetlands hiding moose and grizzly. Drew passes first, Christopher Allen at kilometer 10. Light falls quickly between the trees. Paul doesn't stop for his headlamp. Water drop at kilometer 55. Peak refueled chicken fettuccine pasta onto Whistler Mountain Route. 3 kilometers of steady climbing to first peak at kilometer 59. Volunteers cheering, lightning in distance. Above tree line at kilometer 60, trail shifts from path to suggestion, reflective markers blinking like breadcrumbs. Second peak, Whistler Mountain at 7,251 feet. Third peak, kilometer 63. Fourth peak, kilometer 65. Fifth peak, Table Mountain, 7,323 feet at kilometer 66. Then, 5 kilometers of steep descent, slick and technical. Chris Brown passes. Kilometer 70, Beaver Mines Lake, a dark sheet under the stars. Checkpoint 3 at Beaver Mines Lake Road, 3 o'clock a.m. Andrea Moore's crew chief, Kimber Snow, leads him to Christopher. Feet cleaned, socks changed, attempt at a nap in the Bronco. 4 a.m. Saturday. All steps out of Checkpoint 3. 22 kilometers to the next stop. Andrea Moore, Anna Robbins, Rebecca Walker, not yet arrived. Retraces South Castle Road, Whistler Mountain on his left. Glances over to where the water drop had been, gone now. By kilometer 76, turning off the road onto an unnamed trail. Castle River, Grizzly Creek, crosses them one by one. Petzl headlamp still holding strong since 8:30 the night before. 6 a.m., sun bleeding into the sky. Course bends north at kilometer 78. Couple of climbs after kilometer 80, but nothing like the ridges before. Kilometer 82, trees open into Truck Box Meadow Trail, or Pine Martin Trail. By kilometer 84, mostly downhill. West Castle River sliding to his left. Kilometer 89, sound of traffic from Highway 774. Spots Chris Brown ahead. Kilometer 90, parking lot. Texas guard. Foot slips between bars. Quick recovery. Crosses the highway, runs south, turns into Sink Line Group Camp. 8:15 a.m., kilometer 92. Christopher waiting. Christopher Allen already there. Volunteers at the ready. Paul asks for pancakes. Volunteer shakes her head. We ran out. Bagels and hash browns arrive anyway. Buttered, hot. They taste better than expected. A small grace in the middle of a race like this. Act 3, the warm day begins. No pancakes, just miles. Back on course, 8:45 a.m. Saturday. Paul is back on course, leaving Sink Line Group Camp under a rising sun. It's beautiful, blue sky, mountain air, but you can feel the warmth coming on, the kind of day where shade is currency. 19 kilometers to the next stop. He and Nicholas Lyons and Daniel Morgan run side by side along Highway 774 for 2 kilometers. The same road that passes the start and finish line, but now it's just asphalt shimmering ahead. They peel off onto a side road, then onto a trail. The climbing begins, 890 feet over 5 miles. Steady, unremarkable, still a climb. Nicholas and Daniel slip ahead, a matched set of Welsh accents disappearing up the path. Kilometer 95. Paul ducks off the trail for a 15-minute nap. Forest quiet, round as a rough pillow. When he gets up, Drew Gibson is coming toward him, worried. Haven't seen course markings in over a kilometer. Paul checks CalTopo, still on course. Points Drew ahead, reassures him Nicholas and Daniel haven't come back either. Drew moves on, confidence restored. Side paths crisscross the trail, the kind that make you second-guess yourself. Kilometer 100, high point of the segment. Sink Line Mountain to the southwest, Mount McCarty to the west. Landmarks like silent chaperones. Rolling terrain after that, up and down toward Lynx Creek. Kilometer 103, merge with the Great Divide Trail. Kilometer 108, veer left onto a road. Still, the Great Divide Trail, just dressed differently. Paul's already thinking ahead. Next segment, 32 kilometers. Dry, Willoughby Ridge, no water. He's got 2 small Solomon flasks, 1 liter total, and maybe not enough light for the night. The thought presses in like a storm cloud. Kilometer 110, cross the Carbondale River. Kilometer 111, over Lynx Creek. Left turn onto a short side road. Checkpoint 5, 12:45 p.m. A small party in the wilderness. Nicholas and Daniel already there. 2 volunteers dressed as pickles. Brenda Shaughnessy, they shared miles last year. Jerry Diesel D, all warmth and resourcefulness. Paul asks Jerry to fill a gallon Ziploc for a DIY bladder. Brenda raises an eyebrow. The bag leaks instantly. Jerry hands over her own 3-liter bladder instead. Paul asks about light. Jerry passes him a headlamp. No questions asked. And just like that, the worries lift. Water and light, the 2 things he needs most. Chicken Alfredo from a Peak Refuel pouch, bathroom, repack the vest, day still bright, ready for the next stretch of unknown. 1:10 p.m. Saturday, back onto the GDT, the Great Divide Trail Road, 32 kilometers ahead. The road rises gently up Lynx Creek Valley. The creek off to the south, a ribbon of cold water in a wide green corridor. Big animals live here: bears, elk, moose, cougars. But Paul sees only tracks and shadows. Kilometer 113, veer right onto the GDT proper. Valley ends, real work begins. 6.4 kilometers of climbing, 1,900 feet, up to Willoughby Ridge. 2 o'clock, he pulls off trail for a 10-minute nap. ATVs buzz past in a string each time he steps aside. No room for both. Kilometer 117, 3:30 p.m. Another short spur, another nap. Andrea Moore passes without seeing him. He wakes to a photographer. "Andrea's looking for you." Chris Brown confirms it. Paul pushes to catch her, the hunt, a jolt of energy. Kilometer 119, he does. At 120, they crest the ridge, 6,447 feet. Behind them, Lynx Creek Valley drops away. Ahead, a wall of mountains. Spades Peak, Hillcrest, Turtle Mountain to the east, Dara, Bagladri, Coulthard to the west. Kilometer 124, a snarl of downed trees. Paul turns right, leaves the Great Divide Trail. Main trail dives west into Lynx Creek, but the race turns steeply off the ridge, 4 kilometers down. Mile 8.2, another fork, another right. Kilometer 136, dusk cooling the air. Ahead, lights of Coleman, Crow's Nest Pass, sparkling like a promise. 4 more kilometers of steep downhill. Paul clicks on the loaner headlamp from Jerry Diesel D, beam cutting the dark. Saturday night in Coleman. Streetlights. A few cars. Local life. He and Andrea jog down the middle of the street like they own it. Checkpoint 6. Polish Hall. 8:30 p.m. Kilometer 140. Christopher waiting, the quiet sentinel. Inside, chair, drop bag, order from chaos. Paul hands Christopher a waist lamp and a headlamp. Here's the lighting you'll need. Christopher just looks at him. He's already bought new lights because he thought Paul had none. Paul never mentioned they were in the drop bag. Hamburger, foot cleaning, fresh toe socks, an hour in the sleep station under blanket and pillow. Wake, eat again, repack the vest. Switch into the old Ultras, heel rubber flapping. Christopher calls them done. Paul calls them comfortable. One last race together. Christopher will pace all the way back to checkpoint 10. The night, for now, feels full of possibility. Act 4. 3 headlamps. Old shoes on. New night ahead. 10 o'clock p.m. Saturday. Back on course. 27 kilometers to Spoon Valley. Christopher Johnson pacing, Andrea Moore alongside. 3 headlamps through the dark streets of Coleman. Coal town of 1,500. Course markers on orange pylons, reflective tape glinting. Crow's Nest River below, highway overhead. Lowest point before the long climb. Saskatoon Mountains somewhere to the east, invisible in the dark. Kilometer 142, the route tilts up. Steep, fine dust, loose gravel like ball bearings. Christopher leads, Paul in the middle, Andrea behind. Trekking poles, useless. Halfway up, Paul and Andrea start sliding back. Paul grabs a branch, Andrea screams for help. Christopher pivots, spider quick, runs down, catches her, pulls her up. Over in seconds, but it feels longer. The kind of moment you recognize as frightening only after it's done. Paul's stomach turns. Nutrition is hard to get down. Kilometer 145, left turn. Kilometer 146, right turn. 2-minute rest. Christopher sets a timer. 30 minutes of work, brief rest, a rhythm to hold on to. They climb 876 feet in a single kilometer on the east side of Wedge Mountain. Mountains stacking unseen around them. Crow's Nest, 7 Sisters, Pa Butte, Ma Butte, all lost to the night. Breaks at 148, drop into a valley at 149. Michael Jordan, 20-3, Christopher says. 3-minute rest at 151. North, up the valley, climbing again. Kit Kats become Paul's secret weapon. Breaks at 153 and 158. Rest at a saddle at 159. 3 more minutes at 161. Nausea fades, replaced by brittle anticipation. Andrea's watch. Checkpoint a third of a mile away. Christopher's Caltapo. Close. Paul's Koros watch. Quietly. Several kilometers left. They push without more breaks. A bet on which device is right. Christopher promises a 4-minute rest if Paul's estimate wins. Kilometer 162, the 5-kilometer descent into Spoon Valley. conifers closing around them, dawn just behind the peaks. Spoon Valley, home to elk, deer, bears, a corridor of wildlife few people see at this hour. 6 a.m. Sunday, the sky softening. Kimber Snow, Andrea's crew chief, is there. They stretch out on the floor and sleep like castaways. Paul orders rice, mashed potatoes, noodles, mixed together. Before 8 a.m., they're up again. Mike Wenzina joins, another headlamp in the morning light. 8 a.m. Sunday, 30 kilometers to Racehorse Pass. Sun up, air clean and sharp. North on Allison Creek Road. South Racehorse Creek on their right for the first 5 kilometers, water like glass. Paul steps off for a quick bio break, a tiny ritual of order in a long day. Kilometer 178, Christopher checks Cal Topo. The course veers west, starting the long loop. Kilometer 179 near North Racehorse Creek, the low point. The climb begins. 1,778 feet over 10 kilometers. Mike Wenzina pushes ahead, then Andrea. Soon, just Paul and Christopher. Kilometers 186 to 189, the steepest part, arcs south along the high rock range, the serrated line between Alberta and British Columbia. Racehorse Peak, Mount Secord, Mount Domkey, ghost shapes on the skyline. Down 869 feet to kilometer 191, up 853 to kilometer 194, down 653 feet to 195, up 860 feet to 198, the high point. Switchbacks across scree fields, the trail a thin line scratched into the mountainside. Finally, the descent, 860 feet over 3 kilometers, exaggerated switchbacks to a parking lot. All jokes, installed after hikers complained about the lack of switchbacks in the Canadian Rockies. 5 p.m. Sunday, Racehorse Pass, kilometer 199. Paul calls out, runner number 12. Volunteer checks Spotwalla, sees nothing. All race there's been no runner 12, she says. For a moment, she wonders if Paul has wandered in from somewhere else. Paul hands over the Garmin InReach, screen blank. Volunteer gives it a quick charge, asks for a fuller charge at the next checkpoint. Another volunteer scrolling. If runner 12 isn't on the map, shouldn't someone be asking where runner 12 went? Paul shrugs, adds hot water to a peak pasta meal. 15 minutes later, they're moving again. As they're leaving, Calgary Search and Rescue warns female grizzly with cubs near Window Mountain Lake. Campers charged and followed. No injuries. Race halts runners approaching checkpoint 8, implements a reroute. Staff give directions. Paul asks, is it marked? Yes, green course markers. They step out into a course shifted beneath their feet. The mountains and bears making their own edits to the map. Act 5, rerouted by nature. Nature makes an edit. We follow the rewrite. 5:20 p.m. Sunday. Paul and Christopher leave Racehorse, kilometer 200. 16 kilometers to go. Racehorse Peak to the right, Mount Ward to the left. Almost immediately, the reroute, left turn, tight switchbacks, green markers hiding in green trees. Kilometer 205, pitch up 643 feet in 2 kilometers, then down 745 feet, then down another 1,000 over the next 6. A rhythm of ascent and descent. Sun sets. Dark valley spreads east like ink. Headlamps become searchlights for the checkpoint. Christopher checks Cal Topo. They'll swing east, then south, then into the checkpoint. Seven Sisters and Crow's Nest to the east, Dead Man Pass Peak looming to the west. Kilometer 214, hook left onto the Great Divide Trail. Run the last kilometer into Western Adventures. 11 p.m. Sunday, checkpoint lights spilling into the night. Andrea asleep in Kimber's vehicle. Kimber offers to charge the watch, iPhone, metaglasses. Yes, please. She suggests leaving with Andrea on the next segment. Paul feels exhausted, unsettled. Christopher announces he's injured, can't run the next section. He'll ride with Kimber to the Polish Hall. Paul retrieves his drop bag, waits outside in the cold while Andrea gets ready. He thinks about the sleep tent, but stays. Lighting, uncertain. iPhone draining like a sieve. Still, he decides to go with Andrea. Mike Wedzina is also leaving. He walks to the start of the next segment with mixed feelings, like stepping off a ledge. 11:20 p.m., kilometer 214. They're gone. Andrea and Mike push ahead. Paul lets them go, on purpose. His light is dim, navigation unreliable. Something inside says this stretch could go bad. Great Divide Trail north at first, off at 216, heading south, past Chinook Lake at 219, over Allison Creek at kilometer 220. Dirt bike web of trails in the dark. Trail narrows along a waterway, tilts right toward a dark drop-off. His footing slips. He lunges, grabs bushes, a branch, hauls himself back up. Scrapes, bruises, a mental blow. Dim light, horse markers harder to spot. Back and forth at kilometer 220 before finding one. Kilometer 221, multiple dirt roads intersect. No marker. He waits. Headlamps appear. Chris Brown and his pacer. My headlamp's dying. I can't tell the way. Chris hands him a spare. Finds the next marker on Seven Sisters Trail. Paul follows. Can't hold their pace. The new light is a small salvation. Kilometer 222. Right turn. Leave the Great Divide Trail. Under power lines around the south side of the Coleman Fish and Game Pond. Kilometer 225. McGillivray staging area. Still under the wires. Mind foggy. Quitting crosses his mind. Slip away. Don't tell anyone. Just go home. Trail nap at 2:25. 10 minutes. Again at 2:26. Again at 2:27. Another at 2:28. 20 minutes. Naps stack like small surrenders. Finally, sleepiness lifts. Kilometer 229, steep descent, slip and slide. More scrapes and bruises. Nothing broken. Kilometer 230. Dark streets of Coleman. Relief. Under the highway, over the river, orange cones guide him to Polish Hall. Monday, 5:15 a.m., kilometer 232. The Ford Bronco, Christopher asleep in the driver's seat. Knock. No response. Inside, Rebecca Walker. Cold vegetarian pizza. A Coke. Cutoff extended from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock a.m. Andrea's already out. He lies down, asks Rebecca to wake him in an hour. Christopher checks on him. He asks for 15 more minutes. 5 minutes later, up. Food. Feet cleaned. Socks changed. Blister on the right big toe noted. Hoka Tecton X3s back on. Done with the ultras. Not ready for the other Hokas. Forecast: rain all day. He remembers pacing this section last year with Scott Jenkins. Rain all night. Brutal. Endless. Now it's Monday morning, and he's heading back out. Act 6, nothing but rain. The forecast isn't a suggestion, it's the script. We go. 7 a.m. Monday, 71 hours into the race, 24 kilometers to the next checkpoint. Light rain, refreshing until it soaks everything. Legs stiff, but sleep and food have given him something back. Christopher charged the iPhone, but the mysterious battery drain makes it useless for navigation. Kilometer 234, the course splits. He follows markers, makes a right, then second guesses, turns around, backtracks, runs into Mike Wenzina and Jennifer O'Brien. Mike. He's sure they're on the correct line. Jennifer. Last year's route was different due to forestry work. All follows. They slip out of sight, alone with drizzle. Kilometer 235. A local hiker appears out of the mist, asks about the race, pivots to politics, Trump, Canada, relations. Paul shrugs. Doesn't know the specifics. Two people on a wet trail, talking geopolitics while stepping over puddles. Rain steadies. Poncho from Rebecca comes out, becomes a hindrance, goes away. Switch to rain jacket, torso dry, everything else soaked. Kilometer 243. Brief rest in the rain. Trail a sheet of water. Better footing walking directly in the flow. Kilometer 247. Another brief stop. High point at 249 should reveal the whole Crow's Nest Pass, but clouds erase everything. Rain oscillates from sprinkle to downpour. A section becomes a beaver-made lake. No way around it. Cold water to the knees. Kilometer 255. Veer right onto Ranger Road 4-0. Leave the Great Divide Trail. Sudden stab in the right big toe. Blister pops. 5 to 10 minutes of excruciating pain. Then gone. Cold isn't. Hypothermia lapping at the edges. 1:30 p.m., kilometer 258, Goat Creek Trailhead. Chris Brown has just left. Volunteers around a fire. Rain jacket and long-sleeve jersey draped near the flames. Arc'teryx jacket on, pants close to the heat. Peak refuel chicken Alfredo. Just add hot water. Then the long-sleeve Aravaipa jersey slips into the fire. Gone. Paul shrugs, reassures the volunteers. Volunteer Lance works the garment in reach, coaxes battery, finds a round rock to roll Paul's right glute. Paul lies on a mat, 10-minute nap, wakes early. Christopher Allen and Drew Gibson arrive. Anna Robbins pulls in with search and rescue. The race is over. Disappointment heavy. Paul hugs her, consoles her. She hands him her trekking poles and some trail goodies. 3 p.m., kilometer 258, back on the trail. Rain still falling, poles in hand, carrying pieces of other people's races as well as his own. Paul steps out of Goat Creek trailhead with new trekking poles. Rain easing, clouds still thick. 21 kilometers ahead, a segment stacked with climbs like stair steps up the High Rock Range. First climb starts almost immediately, kilometer 259, 958 feet in under 5 kilometers. Legs testing the poles Anna gave him. Kilometer 264, the high point, then down again. Course swings south now, tracing the front of the High Rock Range. Mountains looming to his right, both protective and indifferent. Second climb at 265, 594 feet to kilometer 268. Third climb at 270, cross Lost Creek on a warped bridge that still holds. Up again, 705 feet to 274. Sun sliding down the horizon. Shadows deepen. Trail turns gold at the edges. Kilometer 276, he starts the fourth climb. 1,053 feet to 279. Air thinning, sky darkening, world shrinking to the circle of headlamp and breath. Then the descent to kilometer 281. Slick clay underfoot. Every step a calculation, a small act of faith. 10 p.m. Checkpoint 12. North Kootenai Pass access. Daylight gone. Volunteers tending a fire. Larry Malmgren's there, just down from the pass. They talk runner's lane, like mechanics over an engine. Ramen noodles, hot chocolate, a volunteer named Scott, quiet advice, bits of local knowledge. Night, wet, clay slick. In the checkpoint glow, for a moment, everything steadies. Act 7, the coin. Fire behind us, the pass ahead. 10:30 p.m. Monday, kilometer 281. Out of North Kootenai Pass access into the dark. Heading west on rugged dirt road toward the out and back to the pass. Volunteer points at a parked ATV. Pass on the right. Drop off on the left. Chris Brown and his pace are likely on their way back. Scott says 4-kilometer climb to the pass. North Kootenai Pass, 7,218 feet on the Continental Divide. A line on a map, the edge between two oceans. Paul climbs steadily along the south side of Center E3 Mountain. Pine and spruce down low, alpine meadows higher up, mountain goats and bighorn sheep somewhere above, unseen in the dark. A few minutes in, Scott passes him going uphill, running like a gazelle, keeping his daily running streak alive, compliments Paul's pace, disappears into the dark. Near the 2-kilometer mark, Scott comes back down. You'll soon see Chris Brown's headlamp. And he does. 2 small beams descending the mountain. They exchange encouragement. Chris's pace recalls, the coin box is by a big rock. At the pass, on the Continental Divide, every runner must retrieve an official Divide coin from a small box, carry it to the finish, hand it to the race director, who sets it into your finisher's plaque, a literal piece of the race embedded in the award. Paul reaches the rock, finds the coin, places it carefully, securely in his pocket. Rainwater pooled in the stone's indentations. He leans in and drinks, cold, clean, direct from the divide. Alberta, British Columbia border. Paul turns and starts the descent back to checkpoint 12. Off in the distance, lights flicker on the horizon like a UFO. Disappear, reappear. Later he realizes it's Christopher Allen and Drew Gibson climbing. They pass, swap encouragement. But Paul's headlamp is failing. The dim beam makes the trail seem bottomless. He feels Allen and Gibson gaining. 1:30 a.m., kilometer 288. Paul reaches checkpoint 12 again, just before they arrive. Hot chocolate in hand, Scott announces, "You've got 4 hours to get out of checkpoint 13. Paul takes it as the cue to move. 1:45 a.m., kilometer 289. He sits by the trail, swaps in new batteries. Drew stops, says he needs to do the same. New beam, revelation, more light, more confidence. 2:30 a.m., kilometer 291. Plastic poncho on the wet ground. Tries to set a 10-minute alarm on the iPhone. Lies down perpendicular to the trail, head on his vest, and sleeps. ATV skids to a stop. A male voice. "What the hell?" A female voice. "What was it?" It's the checkpoint ATV. Scott leans out. "If I don't see you within 30 minutes at the next checkpoint, I'll send help." Paul says, "Don't bother," and wonders how close the ATV came. Checks the iPhone. Never started the alarm. Grateful Scott woke him. 2:45 a.m. Up again, eyes scanning for reflective markers. Dirt road becomes a long series of knee-deep puddles. He stops, dodging them. Cold water jolts him awake, shoes soaked anyway. Kilometer 294, cross the Carbondale River, a small tributary of the Oldman, part of the South Saskatchewan River Basin, known for trout and cold clarity. Mixed forests on both sides, water threading the dark. He focuses on efficient motion. In the distance, female voices cheer. 2 headlamps, Anna Robbins and Rebecca Walker, out from checkpoint 13 to meet him. It hits like an emotional sucker punch. Gratitude rising like a tide. They jog with him through the puddles. He says the water keeps him awake, like being a kid again. They laugh, say he's moving fast. Christopher appears, guiding him in. He'd been resting in the Bronco when Scott knocked to say Paul was napping on the trail. 4:45 a.m. Tuesday, kilometer 298, checkpoint 13, Carbondale Road Camping Area 5. He heads for the sleep tent. 20 minutes under Christopher's watch. Wake. Change clothes. Clean and lube feet. Race official with a flashlight. How are you feeling? Good. How are your feet? They feel great. They look great. Good luck. Anna and Rebecca help him get ready. Christopher loads a rice and meatballs meal for the trail. Massage gun on the right glute, trying to head off the lean. Christopher will join for the last segment with the finish. Act 8, 5 hours to noon. 23 kilometers, 5 hours. Noon or nothing. 5:15 a.m. Tuesday, kilometer 298. Paul and Christopher Johnson step into the dark. Headlamps on. Air cool enough to sting. Christopher Allen and Drew Gibson leave about the same time. They are the last runners still in the race. Everyone else dropped, timed out, or gone to ground in the mountains. Finish waits at Castle Mountain Resort. The clock is merciless. Noon, Tuesday, hard cutoff, no exceptions. Paul eats the rice and meatballs as they move, calculating aloud. 23 kilometers, 5 hours. 5 kilometers an hour. First part will be slow with the climb, he says, but we'll make it up later. It's the kind of math you cling to when everything else feels unstable. They cross the Carbondale River, water black and quick under their lights. Follow the Mount McCarty route. Kilometer 8, another creek. Then the 8-kilometer climb begins. The knot in his lower back tightens. Runner's lean creeping back in. Stops to squat. Relieve pressure. Lies on a rock. Works the gluteus minimus. Christopher's elbow, sharp pressure. 3 or 4 rounds of it. Finally, longer and slower. Sustained pressure instead of stabbing. Trail threads through wild raspberries, late-season berries drooping, bear scat laced with red seeds, dusky grouse flushing like ghosts. Kilometer 309, right onto the Great Divide Trail. Climb another 558 feet over 4 kilometers. Kilometer 314, high point near Syncline Mountain. U-shaped fold in the earth, 7,536 feet, their last true summit. Then the drop, 1,214 feet in 2 kilometers, down to the floor of West Castle Valley, right on Highway 774. The highway is a strange sight after days of wilderness. Asphalt, painted lines, a sudden blast of normality. On the far side, 2 of Emma's pacers are out for a jog. She isn't with them. A serious injury forced her to drop. Her pacers moving is like a parallel universe, a flicker of normal life in the middle of Paul's long march. Kilometer 316, off the highway again, cross the West Castle River, run along its edge in wetlands, water glinting in the early light, trail soft underfoot. The finish finally close enough to imagine. Kilometer 320, Scott appears. Same Scott from North Kootenai Pass, the ATV near miss. Now he's jogging toward them, lone figure in morning light. shouting back to the finish like a herald. Says he's been sent to guide them in. Says they've got plenty of time. After days of climbing, guessing, and clock watching, the finish line feels close enough to believe in. They cross the West Castle River one last time. Ahead, Castle Mountain Resort waits. After hundreds of kilometers, days of rain and passes, coins and checkpoints, it's suddenly right there. Paul is the last runner still on course, racing the clock. Noon cutoff, but now they know they're going to make it. Trail tips up one last time and then flattens. Resort noise drifts toward them. A handful of voices, the metallic clink of cowbells, the smell of food that isn't freeze-dried. Scott runs just ahead, turning back every few seconds, urging them forward like a pilot car leading a convoy. They step off the trail and onto the final stretch of gravel road. The clock above the finish line still shows minutes to spare. Noon is the hard cutoff. It's 11:38. 22 minutes to spare. They're going to make it. No big crowd, but faces that matter. Rebecca Walker, Anna Robbins, Andrea Moore, Brian Gallant, Christopher Allen, Larry Malmgren. Friends turned characters in their story. Ponchos, poles, headlamps, drives through the night, horse marking and quiet watchfulness. They step under the banner. Paul gives Christopher a long hug, the kind you give when the miles are finally over. Then the ritual, the divide coin, the same one from the rock at North Kootenai Pass, handed to race director Brian Gallant. He presses it into the finisher's plaque, a literal piece of the course locked into the award. Paul stops moving, and the weight of miles rushes back into his body. Legs tremble, stomach turns, face cracks into a smile anyway. Days of numbers and weather and trails, of naps in ditches, of grizzlies and scree fields, all telescope down to this, standing at the finish line, alive, still moving, officially finished. Epilogue, looking back from the finish line. When the cowbells fade and the plaque with the coin is tucked under your arm, what remains isn't just the miles. It's the inventory of how you got through them. Lighting, night running was a negotiation. Petzl, steady and reliable. Ultraspire 850 waist lamp, dimmed and failed within an hour. Could be the battery. Lost charging cords at checkpoint 1 turned nights into scrambles for power. With Christopher pacing, first action at crude aid, plug in everything. iPhone, Coros, waist lamps, headlamps, metaglasses. The iPhone remained a black hole, dead minutes after leaving. Navigation and stress both took hits. Metaglasses, brilliant early, capturing small, unscripted details, until fatigue overtook documentation. Nutrition, plan held. Mid-race nausea resolved. Pro bars and peak refuel as the backbone. Kit Kats and hot chocolate filling gaps. Crew and pacer, Christopher Johnson. Crew chief and pacer, over 100 kilometers. Checkpoint 6 to checkpoint 9, then checkpoint 13, all the way to the finish. More than logistics, an anchor. Shoes and feet, Hoka Tecton X3 standouts, gaiters sealing out scree. Old Ultras, one last race. Regular sock changes, foot cleaning, Vaseline. Right big toe blister popped near Goat Creek, pain gone in minutes. Toenails took a beating, but feet held under days of water. Caffeine and sleep, pills and Rev Gum lost their punch on the last night. Naps became the lifeline. 19 trail naps, 2 hours, plus 3.5 hours in vehicles and sleep stations. Just over 5.5 hours total across 320 kilometers. Shortest nap, 2 minutes. Longest, 1 hour. Hashimoto's in the background, thermoregulation, energy recovery, moving targets, managed with layers and pacing. Problem solving in vehicle, Bronco from Turo, great transport, few camper comforts, lost cords, iPhone power draw. Some problems solved, others hung low like clouds. Runner's lean first appeared, checkpoint 6 to checkpoint 7, full-blown by the end. Should have worked the right gluteus minimus sooner. Christopher's elbow helped. The knot became part of the narrative. Tracking, Garmin InReach plus Spotwalla. Virtually useless live tracking here. Full charge, 30-minute pings, pocket carry, still vanished from the map. Because Spotwalla pulls from Garmin servers, any delay, gap, battery drop breaks the illusion of real time. For multi-day mountain races, that's a safety issue. Consider track leaders, open tracking, or direct map share data. Search and rescue, Calgary SAR, everywhere. Checkpoints, patrols, bear alerts, a quiet, constant safety net. In the end, the finish line was more than a banner. It was a handshake with every decision and improvisation. The divide coin handed to Brian Gallant became the symbol. Nights of failing headlamps, raspberry thickets, mountain passes, bear reports, naps in ditches, conversations with strangers, pacers who showed up at the right time. Not a clean story, a mosaic. Pressed into the plaque, the coin holds it all together. Closing monologue, the coin in the plaque. When the race ends, you think it's over, but really, the finish line is just where all the small decisions finally show their seams. The headlamps that worked and the ones that didn't. The charging cords that vanished at checkpoint 1. The iPhone that drained itself like a nervous animal. The meals that went down easy and the ones that came back up. The nap on the side of the trail. You only half woke from when an ATV almost rolled over you. You think about your pacer, Christopher, who crewed, drove, charged gear, and then ran more than 100 kilometers beside you. 2 pairs of shoes, one shiny and new, one old and falling apart, and somehow the old one carried you over the hardest miles. You think about Hashimoto's, the invisible math it forced on your energy, about raspberries, grouse, beaver-made lakes, about volunteers, search and rescue teams, pacers, friends, who showed up at odd hours on cold roads in the middle of nowhere. And then you hand Brian Gallant the coin, the one from the rock on the Continental Divide, and he presses it into the finisher's plaque, a literal piece of the course locked inside the award. Days of mountains, weather, improvisation, held by one small round coin. That's the Divide 200, not just a race, but a mosaic of light, mud, voices, and miles, stitched together until all you can do is stand at Castle Mountain Resort, hug your pacer, and realize you've made it. That's it for our story. Thanks for spending time with us. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've got a story you think we should tell, reach out and share a few details. It just might end up in a future episode. Get Some is written, produced, and hosted by me, Paul Johnson. Find photos, show notes, and past episodes at getsomepodcast.com or on our YouTube channel. If you're enjoying this series, leave a review or share it with a friend. It helps others find these stories. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. And remember, today is the best day of your life. Now, go get some.